For today, I'm going to be using a canvas. This is a small one, just so that we can practice on techniques without worrying about our surface area. And I have a jar of water. I have a palette that I've covered with plastic wrap so that I don't have to put any acrylic paints down the sink. Spray bottle, a long flat brush, a short flat brush, a liner brush, a small filbert brush, and a makeup brush. These are really good for blending and kind of making a soft effect with your painting. I'll be using cadmium yellow, burnt sienna, ultramarine blue, titanium white, crimson red, primary yellow, and primary red. Starting off, I'm going to spray my canvas. Make sure that it's nice and covered with water so that we're not worried about our canvas getting too dry early on. Long flat brush. I'm going to mix some colours up first. So first I'm going to mix up 2 shades of orange. I'm going to be doing crimson red with a bit of that primary yellow. And just take that and put it there. I'm going to take some of that primary yellow again and a tiny bit of the primary red to create more of a yellow orange shade. That's it. And kind of bring that into Then going in with my greens, I'm going to do some primary yellow with a dab of ultramarine blue, kind of a light shade of green, I'm going to do a small amount of mid yellow with quite a lot of ultramarine blue for a deeper shade of green. And then just grabbing my long flat brush, I'm going to add some white just to create some light throughout the painting. Maybe add some green here over the top. I'm kind of just dragging my brush and creating these shapes. Using my makeup brush, makeup blending brush, I'm just going to go into that sky and just softly blend it out. We kind of get this soft effect from the paints. That's the first layer, and what I'm going to do is, before I start to let it dry, I'm going to grab some of these orange and red shades and I'm just going to go in here and start to add some of that into the greenery, just so that it can dry in a soft Just kind of dabbing that throughout. Okay, so I'm going to leave this to dry, and then I'm going to come back once it's all dry for our next layer. That is almost about 80–90% dry. So I'm going to go in with the second layer now, because I do kind of still want the colours to blend. you can see that the colours have lightened up a bit because there was a lot of water versus paint. And so now I'm going to use only a wet brush. I'm not going to spray my canvas, and now I'm going to go in only with a wet brush and some colour. So it's doing the same thing that we did in that first layer. I'm going to be grabbing my different kinds of oranges, so mixing the crimson red with some of that primary yellow. Okay, I'm just going to be putting the colour, making sure that my brush is nice and wet so that the colours are not going to dry as soon as they hit the canvas. That is the key thing to remember, to make sure that your brush is wet. This is going to stop the colours from drying and leaving streaks on your painting. Then grabbing the primary yellow, I'm going to go in with the primary red. And again, making sure I have a wet brush. Don't be afraid to just wet your brush. I'm going to be adding some white into here as well, just to make sure that we're getting some brightness. Okay, now whilst that is still nice and wet, I'm going to quickly grab my makeup brush, my blending brush, and I'm just going to go in and mix these colours softly together to create this really warm kind of cloud. I don't want to blend it too much, so I don't want the colours all to become one. So I want to make sure that I keep keeping a very light hand so that we can still see the different shades of colours coming in. And don't be afraid, you can kind of move your brush in different directions so you can create kind of movement into your clouds. Okay, so we're going to leave it like so, and then I'm going to move down to the bottom. Make sure that whatever is left on your blending brush, you're going to dry it off, just so that your paintbrush doesn't dry hard and then it's not really usable again. So again, mainly focusing on having a wet brush. I'm going to be mixing in my green and some of the ultramarine blue, making sure my brush is nice and wet so that my pigment is not going to dry quickly onto the canvas. And I'm just kind of going to follow anywhere where there was green before. I'm following the colour where I can see. I'm then mixing in that second green of ultramarine and cadmium yellow for a more deeper green. I'm going for a more just going for a, and I'm going to leave some space so we can add orange that we have on our brush. I want to blend in the colour of the top into the bottom of the painting. So here I can see some orange. So I'm going to go ahead and add those strokes wherever I can. And don't worry about it looking messy. This is all going to get blended out. And then mixing in that brighter yellow. I'm just going to be adding these colours as we go. You can add some yellow as well to bring some light. And then I'm going to add some little pieces of white, just taking a bit of cadmium, a bit of titanium white, and just kind of running that through. Especially on the edges where the colours are going to actually blend together. And now grabbing the brush, I'm going to kind of stipple over all the orange and the red first. So I'm just kind of pushing my brush up and down. And if you feel that there's too much paint on your brush, grab your cloth and just remove any of that excess. And then what you can do as well, you can kind of use that stippling motion. Just be very light-handed with this. Okay, and then so we can kind of see all these different colors. We can go back in and add, whilst it's still wet, it's really important that we need to do all of this wet on wet to not cause the paint to streak. Whilst that's okay, so whilst that's wet, we can use our brush and grab any color that you want to add more of. So for me, I'm going to add some more orange and more white to the canvas. Maybe go a bit lighter. And then wherever I've placed that, I'm just going to add small pieces of white as well to it. Just because the white really helps to blend and acts as that middle color to not make the colors all turn muddy into each other. So this is all wet on wet, so making sure that I'm removing any excess off my blending brush, and I can go back in and slowly start to blend this in. Just kind of using soft motions. I don't want to okay, so we kind of have all of these really beautiful colors blending into each other, and whilst that's still wet, I'm going to grab my brush with my long flat brush. I'm going to take a small amount of green, not too much, and I'm going to just flick out some of that color, just to add and start to bring the landscape to life. Okay, and then this is where you know that this is all unplanned. Okay, so I don't actually know where this is going to end up. I might have had an image in my head, but now it's going to come out differently because of how the organic shapes have taken, how they've kind of shaped themselves. I'm going to grab my filbert brush, I'm going to dip it in some water, and I'm going to grab some of this yellow and some of this pink. Okay, and I'm going to kind of wherever I see some red, and I'm going to go in and add some strokes. So I'm just going to just adding these little petals. You can even go into the green as well and add some little pieces there too. and then even into the sky. Can add. I don't want to add too much to the sky, as I really want it to be our space where we kind of see all of those beautiful colours blending together. Then mixing what I have left on my brush from the yellow and the red, I'm going to go in with the white and kind of add some lighter petals going through these flowers. Okay, then what we're going to do is swap brush. I'm going to move on to my small flat brush, and I'm going to be mixing in some greens. So I'm going to take that ultramarine blue and some of that yellow. I'm kind of going to do these long pulling strokes. I'm kind of taking the brush and pulling it down and adding these more stronger green. Okay, and then with that green that I've placed there, I'm now going to take the same brush, but I'm going to be using a higher ratio of yellow. And so this is going to be our contrasting colour to add into it. Especially when we've kind of got these more simple big green spaces, can go in and add this beautiful yellow green shade. And then with that yellow mix that we have, I'm going to grab some of that white as well, and I'm going to run it through. The more shades of a colour you add, I am really happy with how that's turning out. And what I'm going to do is those flowers, I'm going to take my filbert brush and I'm going to mix some of that yellow and some of that burnt sienna. And on some of the flowers, I'm going to go in and add little centers to them. Not all of the flowers, I just want to do for some of them, just to give the idea that it is a complete flower. So I think that's enough. Don't want to do too much of it. Okay, I'm going to go in with my short flat brush and grabbing the yellow and some white. I'm going to go in and start adding these little dabs and little clusters. And this is just to give the suggestion of maybe some mini wildflowers. They don't really have to look like anything. They're just there to suggest the idea. Okay, now grabbing my liner brush, I'm going to take in that mix of green, add a bit more yellow into it, making sure my liner brush is nice and wet. I don't want it to be dry. And I'm going to grab some of the flowers and add some stems to them. I don't want it to be too thick, so we're just going to keep it nice and thin. Okay. And then also what we can do is kind of add some swirls. Just add some kind of wispy lines throughout. Okay. And I think I'm going to add a tiny bit of splatter and we are done. I'm going to grab a primary red so it's nice and bright, add some water, grabbing the primary red, I'm adding some water just to make it nice and thin. And then using a separate brush, I'm going to go in and just tap. Not too much. It's very easy to overdo it. And I think that's great. So this is the final painting. It's like an autumn flower field. So really using warm oranges and reds, perfect for this season. If you enjoyed today's tutorial, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and make sure to turn your notifications on. I post new videos every single Tuesday and Friday, and I'll see you in the next video.